Well, here we are in the third week, and actually this is a strange set of readings a little bit, but for different reasons. The first reading, I've heard this name over all these years, Balaam, son of Boer, but I never really knew who he was, and so I looked it up in a little bit of the commentary that I will often consult, and it turns out that this part from the book of Numbers, it's getting close to the end of the 40 years that the Israelites have been wandering in the desert. And so they're coming soon to go into the promised land with the law of Moses in their hands and really kind of solidified as a people of God. And so this king, don't remember the king or the tribe, but Balaam was one of his, kind of, not a prophet, because he wasn't like a prophet of Israel, but a diviner, more like a fortune teller, I suppose. And he went, at the command of the king, to threaten the Israelites, to drive them away from coming in through their kingdom or taking over the land or whatever. But suddenly, God uses Balaam. And this is the third of 4 prophecies that he makes. And he actually mentions the star, which would be the Star of David, which would be the entranceway of the Messiah into Israel. So here we are in the third week. We're getting a prophetic look at the coming of the Star of David, the Messiah, and the beginning of the process by which we would celebrate the birthday of Christ, the incarnation, which is what this whole season is about. But I didn't know all of that, and it's kind of strange, the story, but interesting. Now, the responsorial psalm takes the theme because Balaam is actually, because God chose him in that moment and used him, I'll even say against his will, to actually give hope to Israel. And so then listen to the psalm, the response. There's just so many words that speak of this. Teach me your ways, O Lord. Make them known. Guide me in your truth. Remember your compassion and your kindness. Remember me. Show sinners the way. Guide the humble to justice. And it's almost like, as it often is, the psalm, a bursting forth of hope and trust and belief and recognizing God's power to guide us and all. So that certainly carries on the Advent theme. But then we get this gospel. And here we just came to this Gaudete Sunday, rejoicing. We're 3 weeks into Lent. And we get a little bit of darkness here. Because the scribes and elders of the people who often confronted Jesus confront him again. And they're challenging him as to who... But as to how he had this authority, who gave him this authority to do the teaching that he was doing. So Jesus sees it was another trap by them. So instead of answering, he answers their question with a question from himself. And he says, if you answer the question I'm going to give you, then I'll answer the question you just gave me. And he confronts them with this primary power of this Advent season, John the Baptist, who's preparing the way for him, who did that, who already prepared the way for him, because now Jesus is doing his public ministry 30 years later. And he says, where did John get this authority? Was it from heaven, or is it of human origin? And then they get this argument between themselves. Well, if we say it's of heaven, then, or if we say it's human, and they didn't want to answer because they knew they were being pushed into a corner. So they said, we do not know. And so Jesus said, okay, you didn't answer my question, so I'm not going to answer your question. Goodbye. But what we're getting here is a little piece of darkness. Here we passed the third week, Gaudete Sunday, and we're tasting a little bit of the darkness, which is exactly what Jesus came to destroy. And it comes to the highest climactic moment in that cross. And right there in that cross is where Jesus also gives the most light-filled, hope-filled, loving response he could give to the world, and which I think the incarnation comes to its climax because God took on human flesh, and then Jesus restored human flesh and humanity to goodness and forgiveness and love. Extraordinary. So this week, we are being pulled in deeper, and we're being confronted more deeply, and we're soon, next week, going to get the story. Mary's going to come into the picture, and we're going to see the final preparation days for our celebration of incarnation. So as it intensifies through the Word and all the prayers, we're being asked to intensify in us the desire for Christ to be born more deeply into our lives. He's already in our lives. We wouldn't be here if Jesus Christ wasn't a part of our lives. But the question is there any part of us that hasn't welcomed Him? Is there any sinfulness in us that we haven't said, Lord, you're the light. You can touch this darkness in me and change it. You can make me more grace-filled. And I think that's the power and the hope of Advent.